2 meetings ago, I asked that for something to be on the agenda having to do with how the new board members ran and the platform that they ran on and the accusations that the water district was doing. So we wanted to get a report since you guys have been in here for a while and see what's going on. And I don't see it on the agenda yet.
Okay. On advice of council, it was not put on the agenda, but it will be addressed in the future.
Can you explain that?
It's my recommendation based on certain pending matters that this matter be taken up at a later date.
Okay.
Good evening.
Gail Warnick with the Rosamond Community Watch Program. I want to give you guys an update on the Sierra Highway Cleanup Project that's going to be happening on Saturday, February 21st. We are still looking for local businesses and or residents to participate. We're going to be cleaning up Sierra Highway from Rosamond Boulevard all the way to Avenue A. We are not going to be on the business side, but we are going to provide the businesses with the bags so that they can also participate. We're looking right now at about 65 volunteers, but we still have a few more days to go, get a few more people in. We have had a couple of donations that has given us a good head start on feeding the crew, but we are still also looking for businesses and or residents that would like to support that as well. If any of you are interested in joining the cleanup or helping out, we have our business cards with us tonight, and we'd be glad to hand those over to you and contact us and be a part of cleaning up our community.
What time is it?
What time is it?
8 a.m. We're meeting on the east side of the street, right in front of Sal's restaurant. That's where we'll have our parking. Limited parking there, so we do suggest carpooling if at all possible.
Thank you. And then we'll move over to item 6, comments and presentations. Under that, we have director's comments.
Had a meeting today with Mr. Perez and the computer representative. Took a look at a plan to initiate where we can take a look at what the district needs in a whole for the future. That way it's something that can be added into the budget. Still coordinating on that. Everybody will be notified of what has happened once the proposals are in. All I've got right now.
Yeah, just a couple things. First of all, those of you who might have missed it last night, the Rosamond boys clinched the share of the High Desert League Championship, 6-0 baby, over at Glennon Gymnasium. The girls also look like they are headed for the playoffs, or 4-2. Because they moved over to the central section, all the playoff games will be on the road. So if you want to catch them again, they're at KB on Friday and they're at Fraser Mountain on Wednesday before the season closes.
What sport is this?
Basketball.
Thank you.
And also in basketball, former Rosamond High School graduate continues to coach over at Paraclete. They're in the toughest division, one of the 5 toughest divisions in the nation, and they seem to hang in quite well, coached by Tim Ackerson. February 19th, the Thursday night at 7 p.m. is the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council meeting. Bill Gaddis from the Edwards Air Force Base Restoration Advisory Board will be speaking on efforts to clean up Edwards Air Force Base and the surrounding areas. And he's our representative on that board. Each community from the surrounding area has one. He'll fill us in on what's going on. And we'll have 2 brand new members, Bill Parkman and Virginia Sharo Romo will also be getting their feet wet as members of the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council. So hope to see you there on Thursday night as well. And as you might know, the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council is one of their responsibilities, the eyes and ears of the Kern County Supervisor, 2nd District Supervisor Zach Scribner. His representative, Ryan Rush, is present today, and I'd like to acknowledge his President Ryan. Thanks for coming.
Mr. Gordon?
We've had a series of special meetings, closed session, and I prepared this to read to you. It's pretty short, so don't worry about it. We have been reminded, according to the Brown Act, that all discussion in closed session related to personnel matters is confidential and may not be repeated to the public. One goal is to protect the employee's privacy. I would like to remind us all that our GM has requested all discussions to be public. I have a higher standard. I believe I will answer to someone greater than the Brown Act, greater than my own conscience, and greater than the public. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus said, I tell you that men will have to give an account on the day of judgment for every careless word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned.
Mr. Waltz? Welcome. It's good to see you. It's good to see people cleaning up Rosamond. I was telling someone about that today. Charlie Harris, he's really concerned about the trash, and I was sharing with him that you started that. Thank you. Mr. President, a couple meetings ago I asked about a meet and greet for your employees. Have you been able to set that up for us?
I'm sorry, it totally slipped my mind,
Okay.
and I have not. I will.
All right. And the second thing that I have on here is email addresses for the board members.
That has been set up.
Okay, thank you.
How does that work?
You'll get an email address and
Now you know how to check it, I guess, is the question. Okay.
you log into it, just like you do in your regular email.
Okay.
Just have to give you your email addresses, and you're off and running.
Any presentations for tonight?
In fact, I sent you an email to your new.
I didn't get it, I got it at my old one.
Did you?
Yeah. I didn't know it was there, so. All right. Let's move to item 7, informational items. General Manager, update on district projects.
Its testing has begun on the solar projects. And basically, it puts us about, I'd say 95% complete on all 3 system arrays. And it's one of about 3 different system acceptance tests that have to be completed before it's energized. There's a commissioning and that has to happen also. So they've begun that. The project's almost complete, and hopefully we'll be seeing a savings as a result soon. I'm not sure what that final date is, but it's not far down the road. I think that's all I have, is just that for this evening.
Well, the Public Works Department has repaired a number of service lines in the last 2 weeks. There's been 5 of them in the community of Rosamond that they actually pulled lines and replaced the old lines. They've also hung 244 late notices, which resulted into 123 lock-off notices, which was done today. They also installed mainline extensions and fire hydrants at both well 9 and the sewer treatment plant. It was required by the county that we put in fire protection for the solar arrays. So we installed fire hydrants out there.
Water on electricity.
Did a sidewalk repair over in Whispering Sands. We did 12 camera inspections on this new track here next door. And rebuilt some flush valves in the girls' bathroom over at Williford Park. And that's all I have.
Yeah. What were you doing at Minnie's Burgers?
Oh, that was a water service line leak, yeah, right up the main. Today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say repair line, that's one of the repair service lines?
Yeah, I don't have that one down here, but that's another one, yeah.
Okay, and is 244 late notices and 123 lockoffs, is that normal for this?
That's actually
It's
light.
actually low.
It's actually light.
So, because the winter months, people aren't using as much anyway. Okay.
We've also had to go to a new notification method where January 1st we had to start actually door hanging our late notices. We used to mail them, and now we're having to, take manpower and drive out and hang those notices. And then we have to go out 10 days later?
No, 10 days prior, we'd have to do,
Is that,
go ahead, go
she
ahead.
tells us when we gotta hang them, we hang them.
So AB 2747 was modified effective January 1st. We're now required to give a 15-day notice if it's mailed to tenants for a notice of termination of service. And then 5 days later, we're required to hang notices on the premises 10 days prior to notice of termination, and then we still have to provide them a 48-hour notice. So we had to introduce a new door tag.
Oh, 48-hour notice, okay.
We've had the 48-hour notice, now we have to do an additional 10-day
10-day
notice
notice.
prior. So
Yeah,
it's creating more.
it's a lot of letter hanging for the public works guys.
In 7 languages?
Yes, and it has, actually, it's 6 languages.
You ought to hear this John speak Chinese.
Mandarin?
See,
You have software here. Is there any way that you can send an electronic notice out and still meet the requirements?
The law only allows us to do that for the 48-hour notice, and that's what we're currently in the process of doing. We're trying to get an IDR system to do outbound calling. But the 10-day notice we have to hang.
It has to do with the audit. You told me to be brief, but I prepared something in regard to the audit. If you have the audit, you have your bound copies before you. And I think it's essential to understand that the audit function, what it's about, to be able to understand what it means to receive the highest level opinion in regard to the outcome of the exercise. Auditors request information of the staff. Staff has to provide it. Auditors pour over the information, looking for material weaknesses, failures to enact policies, and ask a myriad of questions concerning the documents under review. Staff is also observed while they're working in their various areas to see if they're following the policies and guidelines. This audit was conducted pursuant to the guidance of the audit standards generally accepted by the United States of America and the Government Accounting Standards Board. It's my belief that the 214 audit is another display of success of the agency's attempt to change the financial culture of the district. It is a document that basically gives us a better understanding of where we're deficient, when we're deficient, and rather than run from the audit and audit reports, we welcome them so we can tighten up our standards internally. Staff has worked to repair or replace obsolete, worn out, or broken systems that carry financial structure of our agency. In addition, they have worked diligently to convert replacement technology by dedicating countless hours to ensure any known glitches were addressed. Audit is one more example of the steps we rely on to ensure this agency is complying with all state and federal mandated regulations and laws. And we have been systematically working to reduce the number of errors in our audit report. Last year we had 6 agreed upon findings. This year we have 2. Hopefully next year we'll have 0, and that's our goal. None of the misstatements detected in the result of the audit procedures and corrected by management were material, either individually or in the aggregate, to the district financial statement taken as a whole. It has taken us several years to address the many concerns first encountered by the Brown Armstrong audit team, but we have made significant progress. We'd like to thank Rosalba Flores, along with her team, for leading the effort. And we'd like to thank Brown Armstrong CPAs for the unbiased opinion, which have assisted us in becoming a better agency. And with that, I'd just like, Brad, do you have any other comments in regard to the audit? And now that the board has the final audit, it's just necessary to recognize what having a good audit means. Thank you.
Thank you. What update?
Yes, Still working on putting together the workshop on the duties and responsibilities of the board members. Looking at February 25th in the morning as a potential date. If that's a problem for any of you, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll likely schedule it that day. So it'll be coming up pretty soon. That's it for me.
Move to item 8, action items. Item A, discussion and action to annex tentative parcel map 12096. And first of all, we're going to have public discussion.
This is a request by the owner of the property to produce a tentative tract map number 12096. And part of that, the county is requiring that he be annexed into the Rosamond Community Service District. This is the first stage in the annexation process, wherein the board authorizes the annexation. And what that does is starts a series of very specific things that have to happen in coming into the district. The first thing that would happen if you authorize the annexation is a feasibility study will be conducted by an engineer that would determine where the utilities will come from, the waters, the sewer, and at what cost it would be, or an estimated cost to bring that to that property. The second thing, terms and conditions would be set for the owner of the property to comply with or agree to before it would move forward. Then it would go to the process of going through LAFCO. There would be a protest hearing held. If there's no protest, it would go through the normal LAFCO process, and they would determine and have a vote at LAFCO to accept the annexation into the district. There is no offer of will-serve letters, either for sewer or water at this point, and the owner understands that there is a moratorium at this point due to the drought conditions. However, he can proceed with processing his application for the tentative tract map if this is begun. So with that, it's whatever the pleasure of the board is in accepting the letter to move this annexation forward. It is staff's recommendation that we move forward with the annexation, as it's not going to cost the district. The cost of the annexation will be placed on the shoulders of the property owner.
Well, first of all, comment, thanks for including ordinance 92-6, and it was very helpful to understand the process. I think Mr. McCabe is on the board that passed that ordinance. The question I have as far as the taxpayer goes, the person who wants to annex in, maybe it's a question for council. I'm looking at the tentative parcel map, it indicates that it's not contiguous to the RCSD. Is that, am I wrong? It says it has the RCSD boundary way over on the other side of the freeway. Is it not contiguous?
It is contiguous. On the west side of the property, it's adjacent, and the property runs north on the west property line, or the district boundary runs north on the west side of the property.
Okay, so it's not, he's not going to waste his money trying to get in, he can get in.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
I have a couple of questions. Steve, you already answered the one. It's not going to cost us any money. What's the potential number of connections if they went through?
He doesn't have a project at this point that is identified, but all we know is that it will be a commercial project.
It's commercial rather than residential.
Right.
Okay. And does this annexation clearly add value to its property?
Oh, he does, yes.
I move we accept the tentative parcel, accept the letter, and with the recommendation that this is the first step of the process, and if he wants to move on further, that he follow the next steps, which are feasibility study, terms and conditions, and processing for LAFCO, through our tree.
Before we go any further, let me go back and ask if there's any now public discussion before we take the vote. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to start the process. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and second. Any further discussion by the directors? All those signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's 5-0. Okay. Item D, discussion regarding a constructed marsh in Rosamond. This is for public discussion, or for us to discuss.
I asked him to say something first, I suppose.
No, go ahead.
We go first? Okay, that's something I asked to be placed on the agenda, and I've since been in discussion with Mr. Hector Ruiz, the professional engineer / manager over Trabuca Canyon, and he sent a number of documents to us. Not his entire grant package, I think we have in front of you some highlights of the grant application process. It appears they started in 2006. I thought they started I guess they finished up over the holiday this winter. So there are a few more things that need to be addressed. Obviously, in getting it through, but I think what you have in front of you, let's see if I have that here, is a good start. Do you have that? Okay. The work. He just kind of sent us what the work plan is. We had to contact with it. I think the things that I took away from looking at the work plan and the like was, number one, he had several partners, not just, they were not going on their own, and they weren't just going with one other partner, although we should certainly try to get going with Allen Valley's current. Second, that there were he identified some areas that were of concern that were slow. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is extremely slow, and to also be aware that you want to make sure that we want to make sure that the California Fish and Wildlife has had a chance to review everything and is agreeable to it when we do get rolling on it. As I mentioned before, the State of the County dinner, I had a chance to sit across the table from a couple of county planners. They indicated the place for Marsh should not be next to a housing tract, because I said, darn, we have 10 acres and we could put it right now, otherwise it's got a big hole in it if you're right off the fell site. But I kind of put the kibosh on that. But in the meantime, one of the things I'd like to look into as well is, I believe we have the power to control stormwater. That's never been clear, though. If that's something that we could verify that we have control over stormwater, that would be helpful, especially when you're setting up a marsh and using reclaimed water as well, as they're doing in Trabuca Canyon. The closer I think we can to emulating what their project is, the better chance we are going to have getting it approved, because it's been approved once in Orange County, which is a difficult place to get anything approved. And let's see, the other things that he sent us he did send us a picture of what it's supposed to look like when it's done. I have a copy of that for you here. We each have an email of that. And he also indicated they have broken ground. They expected it to get done this month. They had some water, some rain, so that kind of delayed things. So probably April, maybe you have to go look at that and see how it actually comes out, how it's finished. But I think we should certainly take advantage of the resource, and thank Mr. Ruiz for providing what he has provided. Maybe send him a disk, a little thumb drive, so he can load everything up on that, because I don't think he wanted to email the whole grant application to us. If that would be helpful. And then figure out what do we have to do immediately to make sure we're in line for, if we get Prop 84 money, if we can get some other properties available, and see if that's something that we can make sure we get in line for it. Because if that closes off, at least we'll have it in line and we can finish up with. It looks like it's going to be at least a 2 or 3 year project to get it rolling. I don't know if we can go faster than that. Brian might have a better idea on that, but certainly, given the fact it took them from 2006 or 7 to 2015, if we shorten it to 2 years, I think we'd be doing pretty good. But that's
Okay, now,
That's where I'm at on that.
how about telling us what the purpose of the marsh would be?
Purpose of the marsh is, first of all, a constructed marsh. A marsh is something that's wet all year round. So you have to have water in it. Currently, our reclaimed water goes out to a pond after it's been treated and evaporates. Doesn't go anywhere but into the air, and it's not collected there at all. We have purple pipe that runs all the way up under the freeway, north of Rosamond into close to Rattlesnake Road, where there's a decomposed granite pit. And my idea would be is if we can get someplace in Rosamond, whether it's up in that area or even another area that's not near houses, that would allow the reclaimed water to be used in that marsh area along with stormwater and that type of thing, that water could percolate down to the groundwater as well. We could then take the water back out and use that rather than having it just evaporate. You gotta understand that the water that's being reclaimed, to my understanding, is potable. It means that you can drink it. And I don't know what the nitrate level is.
No,
You can't drink it?
No, the state wouldn't let you drink it.
It won't let you drink it, but it is,
Potable
you're not gonna die from drinking it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, you can drink it, we're not.
Okay. Well, that's the point. We put it through one more filter. That's if we put it through one more filter, we put it through the ground. And make sure we mix it with some other reclaim or with the stormwater as well. And follow the criteria that's been set up in the Orange County case. I think it would be, the primary idea is to make sure we're not wasting water, that reclaimed water, and putting it to use.
I've got to ask the question that if we're gonna create a marsh, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create another issue. And that issue is once you create the marsh, and once the wildlife takes hold, you are going to have to maintain that marsh wet for the rest of eternity. It is going to be a wetland then, and it's gonna require you to put your water there forevermore. The other problem is, I'm not sure if you're aware, but from Rosamond Boulevard south to Avenue A, from about 65th to Edwards Air Force Base, is probably the largest collegiate clay area in the Antelope Valley. That's why our ponds sit out there where they are, and they're evaporative ponds and not percolation ponds, is because they sit on a big collegiate clay bed. So getting percolation is going to be extremely difficult anywhere in this area. The other thing is, the Lahontan, if you're going to do it for percolation purposes, they're going to require you to do a 4-to-1 ratio blend, one recycled water to 4 parts potable water. And the question is, if we're going to go to expend the money to do a marsh, what have we done with the $6 million at the water bank, which is the best recharge area in the entire Antelope Valley? And so we have recharge area, and I think we ought to think long and hard about what we will create by creating a marsh and then having to maintain it forevermore.
I'll respond to that briefly. Two things, two mistakes in your logic. First of all, the ponds were placed at the dry lake because that's the lowest place in our district. Water flows downhill. That's the reason that you might remember we started with 4 square miles. That has always been the lowest spot. The other areas, you're right, are leachy. Always have been, but that wasn't a consideration when we started building ponds. The other thing that was explained to me, the reason we're doing a constructed marsh is because it will be outside the jurisdiction of Lahontan. And, yeah, exactly. You didn't read what I wrote? I brought it up 2 weeks ago, and I'm bringing it up again now.
What you write, I don't understand, number one. Number two, I don't believe it. Number three, Lahontan takes care of the entire ground water.
The whole area of regulation is, or the whole area of things you can do is this big. This is how it was explained to me by the former executive officer of the Lahontan region. Lahontan covers this much. The state covers another this much. There's another part that's not covered by either the state or Lahana, and that's the constructed marsh. That's what Mr. Harold Springer told me. I put that in my report. They distributed everybody 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again now. Lahana is not.
One of the important things you didn't do, you didn't include me on any of these emails or these attachments whatsoever. You expect me to understand what you're talking about, but you won't talk to me, you won't send me an email, you won't converse with me, and all you do is converse with my staff.
I left the sheet on the table.
That's how we can.
Wow.
Thank you very
I left it
much.
over there, and Mr.
professional
Rock
is
Brown, and
that?
his wife has had an interest in it, but he got it as well.
Well, maybe if we're gonna work together, you put down your baggage and start talking to me so we can work together, because this is getting frustrating. Since you started this, you have never called me, you've never asked a question, you never wanted information, you won't do that, and I have no idea why. You've known me for a long time, you've been able to talk to me forever, and you won't do it now. Why is that?
Since you started this, I think is another misnomer.
You
First of all,
started
let me
it.
respond.
No,
I believe I'm ethically unable to talk to you because you have a lawsuit pending. That's the reason I can't talk
Oh, but it's over.
to you. That is the reason.
You wanna go there, counsel?
I'm just telling you.
Does he wanna go there?
There's a reason I'm not talking to you. That's why I'm not talking to you. That's why I'm not communicating with you. Just you ask the question.
You can communicate
he asked
with
for
me.
clarity.
There is nothing wrong with us working together. Counsel, please advise him.
At this meeting.
In that you may converse with him regarding district business.
Okay.
It would be, in my opinion, ethically inappropriate for you to discuss with him the lawsuit filed by him against you without speaking with his counsel. That would be ethically improper under my understanding of the ethical rules,
Okay,
by which you and I are both bound.
right.
So, you may discuss district business.
But make sure I don't cross over. And I wanted,
It would be inappropriate to cross over.
that's why I wanted to avoid.
Otherwise,
Well,
I
you
have to
guys
do this
are really
through osmosis or something.
We trying to
And that's not good.
Okay.
So I just
I'll
ask,
get you stuff in the future.
Appreciate it.
I'll create you on the, and include you on the emails, but I thought that, didn't want to really violate that.
thank you.
So,
Mr. President.
All right, you have a hand.
Yes, sir. People are just rude. Respect each other. That's what we're hearing. Everybody deserves respect. Everybody. Not one part, but everybody. And when you respect and Steve, not them.
Mr. Wood, you have the floor.
Okay, I understand, looking for ways to percolate water is wrong. Are you aware of Paiute Ponds? Do you know where Paiute Ponds is? Okay. Paiute Ponds was a mistake. What happened is that the water from LA County Sanitation breached the dikes decades ago and created Paiute Ponds by accident. Paiute Ponds, because it was created, you have a wetland out there. Migratory birds to where the federal government says this is now a federal preserve and it has to be kept viable.
I kind of love it.
Cannot drain it. But the fact is that about 12 years ago, and shortly after Mr. McKay left the board, we were looking to build more ponds. And we went to Edwards saying, hey, why can't we build some ponds on your property? They said no. Paiute is already causing them enough trouble in their flight paths and things like this with the birds. You are going to get a lot of resistance from Edwards building another swamp area that's going to attract more birds and wildlife in their flight path, which is basically right between A and Rosamond Boulevard. They come right down through here. Now, I have been in the water and sewage and water reclamation for 35 years. And what's going to happen is that Lahana, I don't know what you were told, but the truth is, they are the Lord and Master of water in this entire region. If anything has to do with the water tables, the adjudication,
leaching of water into the water tables, they make the rules. And right now, the rules are, and I don't agree with it, because reclaimed water is treated to a drinking water standard. But they're not ready to step off and have one-for-one blending, or just basically let it go on the ground and percolate. If you want to put recycled water anywhere, whether it's in a marshland, or whether it's in a hole in the ground, or on Fellside Park, wherever you put it, you're going to have to blend it with 4 parts to 1. In other words, you put an acre-foot of recycled water, you're going to have to put 4 acre-feet of potable water to blend it, just so it can percolate into the ground. That's the rules that's in place today. They're not going to change that. Now down in Trabuco Canyon, in that area, they're covered by a different regional water board. There's many different regional water boards throughout the state. You go up into Northern California, the water boards up there, they're letting them spread recycled water. They do things differently in Orange County than they do in LA County. You know, in LA County, there was a deal where there was a reverse osmosis plant built in Long Beach, right next to the Long Beach Water Reclamation Plant. And they took the recycled water, put it through the reverse osmosis plant, which is called ultrafiltration. And all they wanted to use that water for was a seawater barrier underground. And the regional water board there put a stop on that for several years. That plant sat there not being used because they just didn't want to have direct injection of recycled water, even though it went through another process. It was better than Sparklets, better than Evian. But that's the mindset that we deal with. Now, creating a marshland, you're going to have water sitting on top of the ground. Evaporation rates in the Antelope Valley are tremendous. That's the reason we have ponds, and they cover a large area. The reason for that is the winds blow, evaporates the water. You keep adding water to it every day. You create a marshland, you're going to have a great amount of evaporation, very little percolation. That's why if you do have a water bank, you have to put it on the ground where it's going to percolate quickly and not be subjected to wind. So, you know, you guys right now, you are facing an adjudication. You're facing arsenic, chromium-6, a state mandated water rationing, so to speak, which could get worse. You're facing a drought. You guys need to be looking at solutions that are viable and real. Look at the water bank that you have.
Just one quick question for you, Craig. I've heard all the talk about Lahontan and the 4-to-1. And if you were in my shoes and you found yourself seated across from the former XO of Lahontan region just by chance, and you wanted to find out what was going on with that, would you ask him, would you tell him, why is it 4-to-1, but why is it we can't use the water, and why is it you can't even communicate with Lahontan? Would you have done that?
Well, what I would do, Olaf, is that I would ask you to look at people like me, Steve, other people, Keith Dias, and who sits on the Lahontan board now, and to find out the questions to ask. It's not your fault that you don't have the experience in the water field, and I hope that you'll get it. But until that time, keep your mind open to listen to other people that have been dealing in this a long time.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is, close your mind, there's no way to make it work.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I got to talk to the Lahontan guy directly. One of the big issues, as you know, is you can't even talk to the person that comes out there because Lahontan runs from the Oregon border all the way down. This particular XO is in South Lake Tahoe. And they don't get out there much. When they do, it's in Victorville. When you do, they don't even know about us. They won't hear us. That was one of the things I brought up. And he said, well, that's when he explained to me, Lahontan isn't God over it all like you think it is. Lahontan only covers here. State covers here, constructing Marsh is outside of Lahontan's jurisdiction.
Olaf, have you seen those ponds along the 14th freeway? Those big reservoirs?
Fire ponds?
No. Driving down the 14th freeway at Avenue D, you look at the left.
The new ponds that they put up, yes.
The great big new ones.
Yeah.
You know what those are? Those are storage reservoirs. They're not treatment ponds.
Right. The water goes down, they water those 6 alfalfa fields that are a square mile.
Well, what they do there is they store recycled Title 22 tertiary water. And Lahontan made the districts line those ponds so there wouldn't be any percolation of that recycled water into the groundwater supply. To just line those ponds, even though it was proven that that ground would not percolate. That's how serious they are about not letting recycled water go directly into the water supply. Thank you.
The airport's out there and the water that goes out onto the dry lake, they need the water out there sometimes they don't need the water out there. In dry years, they need it, in wet years, they don't want it, and that's what brought along all of our little ponds that we got put in housing tracts to collect water, because at one point, the lake bed stayed wet all year round one year. So they wanted to figure out, how do we get this water to keep from going out there? Those little ponds create a lot of mosquitoes, and I would be against having a marsh around to attract more mosquitoes. Along with the other thing, the bird stuff also, I think that Edwards would really be looking at that kind of thing.
Mr. Lansgard, I guess on the surface, I have no objection about having a marsh. I like wildlife and everything else, but Mr. Perez brought up a good point of view, in my opinion. Considering the climate, we live up here in the Antelope Valley, it's very arid, desert-like, and we're in, the 4th year, going into a drought. It doesn't rain here every day like up in Oregon or Washington maybe. And if you're going to have a marsh, as Mr. Perez pointed out, we're going to constantly pour water into that marsh. And where are we going to get it from? Now, maybe once in a while during summer, the monsoons come up, and we have thunderstorms, might dump an inch or two of rain, but the years I've lived here, that's few and far between, just my opinion. I did have a question. Is there like a guesstimated cost as how much this marsh would cost us?
Good point.
If there is one.
But when Hector Ruiz indicated that 75% of his cost was covered, so they came up with 25%. I didn't think it. We have the budget there. We don't have that. I can't remember how much, but I didn't look at that part. But certainly the idea would be
100,000 or 200,000, so just
the idea would be to get most of it covered through a grant, if not all of it covered through a grant.
How much, by the service, how much that would cost right up front?
A constructed marsh,
Sort of grant.
big, I would think, I don't know, I'd be guessing. So I guess I don't know. The answer is I don't know. But, yeah, the answer is I don't know. That's a good question. Do we have it, can we just get in there?
Yeah, the projected cost of this marsh is over $5 million.
It's clear as can be.
$5 million for.
$5.1 million, 55% of which was their own cost. 45% was not, 75% was not an accurate number.
So it's 55% match?
Not even close.
55% of the total cost was burdened by the organization, 45% was reimbursed by a grant.
And there were 6 organizations doing this.
Right.
6 entities. That means we need to find 5 other partners that will go into this with us and come up with their half of the money, basically their half of the money. I think it's the percolation problems, the need for agencies, and the matching costs.
All those things can be looked at, there's no question.
That was $5.1 million. How much would the grant cover?
This report states that 45% of the total cost was covered by the grant.
Looked like the Butte Canyon contributed $185,000. Yeah. Out of their budget.
That would have been what?
No. Looked like municipal district, water district, of Orange County, South, put up the lion's share, like 2.4 million.
May.
So, go ahead.
So $5.1 million, 45% grant, I guess that's maybe $2.5 million approximately, I know, just a guesstimate. I just feel, in my opinion, as a 25-year, resident and customer of this Rosamond Community Service District, I don't think this would be a good idea. Maybe down along the San Diego County coastline, where I see a lot of marshes down there, with climate for it, it'll work. I don't think it'd be a good idea to build one up here. And again, Mr. Perez, I feel, in my opinion, brought some good reasons why it probably wouldn't work. I think money would be better spent in some other parts of our community, like, I don't know how many years, the skate park. Last I checked, and correct me if I'm wrong, we were like $10,000 in the hole, if that's still correct, I don't know. I think we're going to use money like that. I think we should build a skate park and just take care of the youth here in our community. I think, that's something they can do, 365, days a year. And maybe find some additionally, like athletic fields here in the community, or the area that falls under the jurisdiction of the Community Service District. Maybe improve playground equipment, just examples like that. But again, I don't feel this marsh in our area would be a good idea. So, thank you for your time. Thank you.
We put things on the agenda, it says discussion. When we put something on the agenda and what we're doing is we're looking for ideas. We put one idea out and somebody else comes along and they hitchhike on that idea, or they come up with a whole brand new idea on how to do something. What we're trying to do is to make the district better. What we're trying to do is to make it easier for you, the ratepayer. And so when we're discussing these things, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get voted on or it's going to be pushed into being, but it's a start. It's a place to start. So we want you to take that into consideration when we're up here. We're doing these things. And so this one here is just for discussion tonight to get things started, to look and to see, as has been pointed out, we have the water bank. We have the ponds out here. We have the sewer treatment plant. We're trying to look for some way to use the output of that sewer treatment plant so that we can bring money into the district. So just wanted to let you know that that's there. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I think one thing is, he mentioned the skate park. We can't use community services funds for that, is that right?
We can.
We can or can't?
Well,
Steve?
Well, it's legal to borrow the money from the funds, but it's not ethical if you don't have a method to pay it back. Then if you have no method to pay it back, then it becomes illegal.
Yes.
Kind of like the park.
We're paying it back.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Be real quick, Ryan Rush, I'm not a resident, but if this swamp is something you guys want to go through with, it might be a good idea to contact the Golden Hills Community Services District. They own Tom Sawyer Lake in Golden Hills and Tehachapi. It is a national wetlands, and they are familiar with maintaining one, so it might be a good idea if that's something you want to go forward with.
Okay, thank you. Discussion regarding the district's vision and mission statement. Mr. Perez.
Yeah, and the district has just completed in October a 5-year strategic plan wherein it has the district's mission and vision statement. I intended to get you all a copy of that.
It's in here, if they've got this.
Okay, and it should be
Pages 11 and 12.
reflected in those.
well, let me explain what I came from. I came from where we're discussing that.
What's that?
The mission statement and the vision statement you have was provided to the board. As I mentioned before, when we went to the conference, they had a number of vision statements, mission statements to choose from. And I noticed that we're not a Parks and Recreation district only, we're not a water district only, we're not a sewer district only, but all of those. And what I did is I did a compilation of 5 different statements as far as a vision statement. The vision statement, for those in the audience who don't have it, that I'm just throwing out there for discussion is, the vision of the RCSD is to be trusted with, one, providing service for reliable, quality water at a reasonable price. And I stole that from Castaic or New Holland. Two, collecting and treating wastewater and stormwater in a safe, responsible, cost-effective manner. Three, lighting the community's highways and byways as determined by the residents. Four, and I stole this from a Parks District, enhancing the quality of life through people, parks, and programs. Five, encouraging positive development of youth and programs in our community. And keeping in mind the idea to have clarity and have it fairly laid out.
And that was presented in one of the sessions at,
Yeah, the vision statement, and like I said, as I swipe, some of those are direct quotes from other districts, and some of those are.
Can I speak to that? We spent hours, the people at those sessions that give you those informations came here. And a consultant came here, walked through this, and we spent hours modifying, changing. The community came, you met with the community, you met with the staff, and we just did this. And this is what we have as our mission statement, and we discussed all the things you're talking about and relationship, and this is what we condensed it down to.
in fact, it was the very person that conducted the class that you got that in, that helped us put that together.
Yeah, so if you want to do this, we can bring him back again at a cost and walk through it again and come up with a whole.
Myron, can you read what you guys have there?
Our mission statement is to provide safe drinking water that meets or exceeds state and federal government standards, maintain a sewage facility, a treatment facility that disposes of water in an environmentally safe, effective, and efficient manner, provide sufficient street lighting to the community. The district strives to provide these services as economically as possible. We left out parks because we're really not doing anything, and we discussed it and talked about it, and that's what we chose to do. Now, if we want to have a whole new board, walk through this again, and then the values down here and the goals, we can do that, but what was the cost to put together this mission statement?
In all the work that was done, it was about $15,000.
$15,000. And we just walked through that. I don't know if Ray wants to speak to that, or Rick wants to speak to that, because they were clearly involved in that.
If I could, I would, sir. Mr. President, might I speak to that?
In a minute.
Okay.
I might add that because the vision and the mission statement is integral to the 5-year strategic plan, that process that Byron spoke of was inclusive of the community. It was inclusive of everybody in the district, not just management. It considered everybody. That changes to that 5-year mission statement should be done in the same manner if we're going to change it. Include everybody in that discussion.
We didn't read you the mission statement, I just read you the vision statement. But before I touch on that point, as far as the dollars, there's 3 of us board members who just have the input from Mr. Aranda up there, or he was the one, or whoever else was speaking on the vision and mission statement. So that money's not wasted. The other point is, Glenn, it sounds like you're left out of the mission statement, even though they consulted with the community, that there's no people, parks, and programs. Mission statement that I'm proposing, the mission of the, not proposing, mission statement.
You're out of order.
Mission statement.
You're out of order.
Okay, how do I say it?
You don't. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any discussion on this item? Okay, we're going to move to item B. All right, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I think 2 things we're going to see here. It's not the fact whether we have a good anything, it's the fact that someone wants to change, whether that someone may be. I appreciate the fact that you bring things for consideration, but did you hear what your board member just said? What he came up with? It's not a he issue, it's a you issue, us issue. So everything we go over has been done, and we're doing it again. And either we're doing it again because there's a style issue or dynamics issue, But the question, I'm gonna challenge the 5 board members, what are we doing, period? Because at every meeting, we throw something out, it becomes a presentation to us. We give input, and it either gets tabled, or it comes back, and eventually gets pushed through. So the thing I would ask is that if it's really broken, let's focus on fixing it. But if it's just a style issue, let's go with it, because everything that I'm seeing now, it's not something that's broke, it's something that someone wants done different. And I don't mind it being done different if there was a problem the way it was. I know we all want to have our signature and our way on something, but are we getting anything done? And I don't know. I'm really trying to be supportive, because when I was a new board member, I needed the support. But everything that comes up now, it's because it's the way I want it done. The statement that Byron read versus what Olaf read, they're both relatively the same. What are we changing 2 or 3 words to have something different to say, that's my mission statement? So what I'm going to ask the board as a whole is that whatever we're going to do, let's start pushing forward, because we're in neutral. We're not moving forward. We're not moving backwards. We're just kind of standing still, kicking up a whole bunch of dust in all of our faces. Thank you, sir.
I clarify something real quick. Director Lansgard, you mentioned stormwater a couple of times. That is not one of the
Point of order, sir, you're out. We're not discussing that, we're past that. You can, next time we're going to discuss it, you can bring up your comments. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to item D, discussion regarding giving Jim Wilford Park to Southern Kern Unified School District. Mr. Perez.
Well, this is not my item. I think this is one of the board members' items, but I will start in saying that in regard to Jim Williford Park, I did speak with the superintendent, and he did tell me that he was approached in regard to this item as to whether or not he would be interested in it. And he did tell me that he was interested in it, but he would have to go through a lot of hoops and months before he could even do anything, because he'd have to get permission in order to move in that direction. I thanked him, and basically I had to think about this issue, and in thinking about the way that the Jim Wilford Park is being paid for, it's currently a county service area, CSA. That revenue that is drawn from that is passed through the county to the RCSD, minus an administrative fee of about 10%. And the monies that are received from the county to maintain the park under the CSA is not adequate at this point to pay for all of the costs. So for the RCSD, it would be advantageous for us not to have another park that is taking more costs than we can afford, because we have zero money coming in for that function. Having said that, however, the questions would be, and I think it would get a little bit dicey once it gets into the realm of the school district, and these are some of the things that I believe that are going to need to be asked and answered. One, it's a county service area, which is a fee that is collected for the operation of that function. It's collected by the residents at West Park and surrounding residents within a benefit area. Some of those residents pay $100 and a few dollars, above $100.
$175.
Pardon?
$175.
They pay for just the park fee, I think. And then others pay about $75 in the other zone of benefit. Now, having done that, the question has to be asked. With school parks and public parks, they are two different things. Many times when there's a co-owned or co-use park, especially with the school district, if they're gonna use it during school hours, they limit the use to only school children and not outside. So it brings up a big question, if I was paying a fee and I was gonna be limited in my use, how is that going to affect those that are paying that fee? The other is, if that can't be done, they may do away with the CSA altogether, and maybe the school district would pick up the entire cost and move on from that position. I don't think it's as easy as just giving them the park like we did United Street Park, because United Street Park, after all, was the school's property. So basically, they took over the operation of that.
One of the reasons that this is on the agenda is to discuss would it be a benefit to the district to give up the park.
Absolutely. To answer that question.
You said they was paying it back, the district house is being paid back.
Through discretionary funds.
It is.
That has nothing to do with this park. That has to do with the park law.
So, could we ask you to continue to talk with the school district to find out what it would take on both parks to get it accomplished?
Absolutely. In fact, I would add to that, if at your direction, to contact the county, discuss the county service area policy as to whether or not that they think that they could even pass that revenue through to the school district because of some of the restrictions of use.
A couple questions. The goal is to relieve ourselves of that burden if we can. I hope we're on the same page there. The agenda item we discussed regarding giving Jim Willow for the park, hopefully, my understanding is, and Ryan, maybe you can look into that, Jim Williford Park belongs to the county, that has never belonged to the community service district. We might have a memorandum of understanding or something.
That's correct.
Okay, and as such, anything that happens with Jim Williford Park has to go through the county, whether it's with us or with the school or what have you. And it seems to me, the legal guy's got to do the talking. Council needs to talk with the person over at the school district, Schools Legal Services, I can't remember his name right now, that does that end of it, would be one to talk to. Maybe you can talk to him as well. If they're interested in doing a memorandum, the county council though would have to be getting involved, because ultimately, they're the ones that hold all the keys, don't they?
I think what should happen is we need to get some information so council could have a good basis to have a discussion with the other council. Doing some pre-work as far as that may answer a lot of questions rather than having to have council do it. I think we can get there, but certainly we are on the same page.
Okay.
I don't want to dump parks. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, you're good.
But in the best interest of the district, because we have zero money and we're going in debt because of it, is the very reason we gave up United Street, and it makes perfect sense for us to do the same thing, to give a responsible entity the ability to establish that as a park like it needs to be. You made the comment last meeting that you liked what United Street Park looked like after the school district took it over. I really appreciate your comments. I do.
Like the way RCSD started, it didn't end up too well.
No, it's amazing what you can do with the money to do it.
Yeah.
They have the money today. How many times, and you were a school board member, the revenue stream for the schools is cyclical. Yes, it is. It is very cyclical, and I know how the shell game in the legislature's played with those revenues. Now that Prop 98 came out,
Prop 98 solves a lot of problems.
it did, but it is not as certain. So if that part goes to the school district and their revenue dips, they're going to be in the same problem we are, quite frankly. So Although I think from my responsibility to this board and to the people of this community is to fiscally operate in a responsible manner. And what you're proposing is a fiscally responsible thought, wrought with, I think, some landmines that we've got to figure out about. You agree to this fee? If not, to give up the responsibility.
I don't think we need to operate by fear. The point was,
It's not fair.
there's a lot.
We've gone $2 million in the hole.
That's not fair.
If I could just address it briefly, there's a lot more dynamics to it. I think we just stay focused on this issue alone. That would be the thing we need to focus on. The bigger issue, there is a bigger issue there, and Coach is right about that, but it's not an issue for today. It's not an issue that should stand in the way of burning ourselves with that debt. That's what I'm getting at.
One of the things we're gonna do, we're gonna ask you to look into that, and bring us back a report. Okay, now, public discussion. Yes, sir.
Byron just touched on it. I think that the same thing. I don't think that unless we need to be looking at, meaning you guys, or send somebody out to do it, to figure out how to raise money for parks, or don't do anything with parks. I mean, you can have it on your thing, but why have it on the thing if you don't have no money to do anything with it? You gotta start going off in these directions and all this stuff. And it should be focused on, you got one thing right up there on your sign, figure out how can we go and get something on the ballot, get the people behind us to put a tax on the ballot, to go to parks, to better parks, not the other stuff that's going on.
Yes.
Mr. President, one thing we could think about, and Mike brought it up, about asking people, if you look at the community in the last couple of years, we've gotten a little bit younger. I know the last couple, we had a lot more younger families moving in. If you look at the population at the school, the younger kids, so that means we may have a longer group of kids, a longer window, so maybe that's something we need to explore kind of in conjunction. If you give it to the school may be good for the first couple of years, but if you think about it, the school was out of money, 4 years ago? If that comes back around, then they're gonna be looking again, so I think it may be an opportune time now to, instead of just look at a part of it, look at all the parts of it, and go and ask us as people here. Some people may be in favor, some people aren't gonna vote yes or nothing. But on the flip side of it, this could be a good opportunity to go over there and say, and it's not a threat, it's a reality of life. If we have it, if we want it, we're gonna have it, but the flip side of it, look at all the things we're missing out on. There's a gentleman that wants to do things up there with the tennis court. He's a tennis guy. He wants to build a tennis program up here. If you give it to the school, then the school says the tennis courts become theirs exclusively, and we lose out on that for the whole community. So it could be a whole bunch of components that we have to look at, but maybe this should be an ideal time now for us to look at all those together.
That's what we're asking the manager.
I know, I'm just saying, sir, maybe this is a good time now. There are a lot of young people floating around here now, which means there are a lot more families here. So maybe there'd be a good time for us to go back out and look at asking the people to vote for it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay.
We got somebody.
Yes, sir.
My name's Russ Woolford. Jim Woolford was my father. I am very much against the school taking it over. I would prefer, put it on my tax bill, form of Parks and Recreation. If the school takes it over, if they run out of money, the first thing it's gonna go is the parks. They're there to educate the kids, not recreation. Their sign says recreation. I'll be in support of anything to build up our parks. We need more parks in this town, and I'm not one of the young ones.
Item 9, consent agenda. A and B, approved check/voucher register dated 1/20/2015 to 02/02/2015. And item D is approved check/voucher register dated 01/20/2015 to 02/02/2015 and related party. I have a motion.
I think
These need to be taken as separate items because the related party item, item B, There are some directors, I am informed, who may need to recuse themselves.
So, do I have a motion for item A? You make a motion. Okay. Do I have a second? I'll second. All right, any discussion? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. 5-0. Mr. Lansford, can we ask you to recuse yourself, please?
Yes, I'll be recusing myself because one of the bills is being paid to Carl's Hardware, which is owned by my brother. And I'll just go ahead and step out and do the conference room.
Close the door. Can we have a motion on item B?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. 4-0. Okay. Moves us to item 10, outstanding items. Any written communications? Okay. Item 2, request for future agenda items. Yes, sir.
First of all, we did have a chance to talk to Mr. Wood here earlier this evening with respect to the Rosamond Foundation. And we're going to hopefully have a meeting on March 3rd at 5 p.m. here at the district office that we're shooting for, if that's possible. 5-10 meetings, is that possible, Liz?
Is that a foundation meeting?
Foundation is. You have to have it during the hours like 4 o'clock.
That is a separate.
I mean, is the district office available for that though?
Yes.
It is available at 5 o'clock. We're not putting people out.
March 3rd.
March 3rd. Okay, and related to that, we have it on the agenda for March 11th, hopefully, not the time before that, because we got the meeting first. But if, one of the questions I have, I think it's a public foundation, not a private foundation, is that correct? The Rosamond Foundation is a public foundation.
The 501c3.
But it's a public foundation, if I remember right. It's for public good, not for private use.
I'm not sure.
I'd like to have that clarified.
Doesn't have nothing to do with the water board. You're just a board member on it. Doesn't have nothing to do with this water board.
At any rate, that's something I want to have clarified. And the Brown Act, I understand, does apply to anything that all 5 of us are on. That has something to do with our job. And I also look at what impediments there are, Tom, to having a subheading for Rosamond Foundation, if any. Even on the website, if it has to be something, a link, or if it's something that actually people can go look and have the same transparency we have with the RCSD with bylaws and latest accounting and latest minutes, that type of thing.
Excuse me, I don't understand the relationship between the water district and that. They're 2 separate entities. Why are we discussing that in
Here.
water board business?
Because they are related. The second
I
thing,
would like the attorney to clarify that,
How
what
are
the
they
relationship
related?
is.
my understanding, and that's what I'd like to know too, Roger, but my understanding is we are related almost joined at the hip, so that needs to be explained.
Then could the attorney explain it to us, please?
Well, hopefully she will. She's given her time to look at the bylaws and then look at that, but
And in the
For some reason,
meantime, can
people-
you not to discuss it during board meetings?
yes, I'm not discussing them. We're going to have to request for future agenda items. Second of all, and here's where my tie-in, I need to know, in order for the bylaws to change, does the foundation first have to meet, make the bylaw changes, and second, present them to the RCSD board for approval? If that's the case,
They are separate boards.
if that's the case, I need to know the answer to that question. That's.
And I'm gonna give you an answer, you sound just like John Joyce, for those the same issues that John Joyce brought up all along. You and John Joyce, why don't you bring the bylaws across to you?
And take them to the foundation's attorney and find out about it. It doesn't have nothing to do with you.
No, that's the question that needs to be answered.
That's John Joyce 101. You keep asking for things you
Mr.
don't have to answer. Just a moment, Mr. President. Point of order is he's out of order. He's commingling bullshit. Enough of this, Olaf. All you're doing is trying to have it your way, and it's not your way. It's the community's way, Mr. Man. Get on board and get right, okay? Sorry, sir. I apologize to you.
I need to clarify something. Number one, what you're doing in this board meeting, and why these people are upset, is you're trying to drag in the operation of the foundation into this agenda. What you need to do is bring up those questions in the foundation, and if there's bylaw changes, they originate in the foundation. They have to be taken in there. That is a separate entity of which you are a part of. It is not part of this entity. They are two distinct and separate entities. You just happen to be a director on it. So your questions that you're asking should be asked at the foundation meeting. Clarification of the bylaws, clarification of the type of 501c3, what type of entity it is. All of those things should be clarified in that board meeting.
How did I become a member of the foundation?
By acclamation in the way it was set up, that the board members, all 5 were part of or would be members of the foundation.
So by virtue of the people electing me to this
No.
board,
No.
I'm a foundation member?
No,
No.
that was how foundation's rules, not ours.
That was the way it was set up.
Okay, that's where the lines are blurred.
God, it's
Okay,
so-
the other question I'd like to see on the agenda is a review of the bond districts. And this is getting away from foundation, and I hope you don't mind. 1988-1, 1990-2, 1991-3.
Would you say that a little bit slower?
There's
I'm trying
three
to
bond
take
districts,
notes.
there's 3 bond districts I think that we have. I think they're 1988-1, it could be 89-1, 1990-2, and 1991-3. That's my understanding of the years that they were
I'm
passed.
sorry, could you say those again?
88-1, 1990-2, 1991-3.
Thank you.
I'd like to, I understand 1991-3 is in terrible straits. I don't know what the other two, the shape of the other two, I would like to know how they compare. And I'd like to know what, if anything, we're supposed to be doing.
Could you volunteer where you got that information?
The 1991-3?
Yeah, that they're in dire straits.
Well, we're not in dire straits. My understanding is we're not the ones in charge of that.
No, we're not, you're correct.
But my understanding, the taxpayers who owe the money on the bonds have not been paying them.
Where did you get that information?
You know, Kern County Tax Collector records.
Could you share that with us?
Sure.
It'd be very helpful. Save us a lot of legwork.
Yeah, you need to get the,
Whatever it is that you have,
Or the tax multiple-
statement on would be really helpful.
yeah. You don't have the access to the assessor's office there?
It would save you a lot of legwork if you already found it.
Okay.
Money.
Okay, well, I'll do my best.
And the detail of the report would consist of what?
Well, who's in charge of the bond?
We have 3 different trustees. The 88's matured, it's over.
Okay,
91-3's mature.
but it's not over. Is that right?
It's in work.
It's in work
And
now.
we have 2 different trustees. We have a trustee at US Bank and we have a trustee at Union Bank.
But 90-2 matures in 16.
Okay. That's,
I'm currently working on the workout on those. But I'll give you,
okay, that's all I wanted.